Hey, sports card fans. It's John, Boggs fan. Hope you're all doing well. I was debating whether to do this video or not. And after thinking about it for a while, I thought that I should just get my thoughts out on video for everyone and just let you know what I think about this particular topic that I want to discuss. Over the last maybe month or so, I've been watching a good number of videos that have been put out there discussing various scams, whether it be altered, trimmed, graded cards, unopened wax that either turned out to be Frankenstein boxes or just flat out don't even contain the correct packs that are supposed to be for that box. Issues going on with some of the breakers out there, and even issues with some of the content creators out there that are calling themselves hobby influencers. As I've been watching those videos, I initially thought to myself, well, yeah, okay, but how does that really impact me? And my first thought is it doesn't. I collect Boggs cards. The only fake Boggs cards I've seen on eBay are the occasional poor attempt at faking an in-person on-card autograph. And they're clearly easy to spot as fakes. And even then, I think the sellers are asking like $25 for them. Again, it's still a scam and a fake. But on the Boggs side, I don't get involved with cards that have a high propensity of being faked. With my vintage baseball card collection, I'm not buying high-end, high-grade examples of some vintage cards that may have more of a chance of being altered, trimmed to get that higher grade. I recently picked up this 1964 Topps Harmon Killebrew in a PSA 5. I'm 99.999% sure that this card has not been trimmed or altered. Who would go through all that time and expense and effort to get a 5? There's just no money in it for someone who's looking to fake this card. So I'm pretty sure that this is a legitimate 1964 Topps Harmon Killebrew. I'm not buying a Tom Brady rookie auto card in a 9 that some I think suspect was previously a 7 or something like that. They've shown side-by-side images and say, hey, this used to be graded at a lower grade and now it's suddenly sold at a higher grade and shows some improvements to the card. Those aren't cards that I'm looking to buy. I'm not buying unopened high-end wax where I'm looking to invest or hit some big cards out of that box. That's not what I spend my money on. I don't get involved in breaks. So, again, why should I care if there are some breakers out there that may be a little shady and not keeping the camera on the packs, potentially switching out packs, doing all that stuff that people are talking about. And as for influencers, again, they're talking more about modern cards, what's hot, maybe some of them of, hey, what cards you should invest in. I'm not consider myself an investor. Those aren't the types of cards I'm looking to buy. So, again, do I care what they're talking about and trying to influence other collectors in doing or information about modern cards and all that stuff? It doesn't really impact me. So, again, I thought about it more, and I said, that's a selfish attitude to take. It's like you're walking down the street and you see someone getting mugged, And you just keep walking and say, well, hey, at least I'm not getting mugged, so why should I care? All right, I mean, someone over there is getting mugged. You know, I mean, at least you should do is get on your phone and call the police or something like that, or intervene or do something. Now, I'm not proposing any solutions here to all these issues that have been coming up. I just wanted to give you my thoughts and why I feel no matter what you collect, no matter what I collect, all of us in the hobby should care about this stuff that's going on. And again, the more I thought about it, I thought of some reasons why it does, in some sense, maybe indirectly, affect me. And the first one is, I love this hobby. I've been collecting baseball cards for over 40 years now. I thoroughly enjoy building my card collection, looking at the cards, completing, projects, completing runs of cards, buying memorabilia. And I want to see this hobby continue and flourish and be enjoyable for everyone involved. And if these types of things continue and there are no repercussions for those that are engaged in maybe some iffy practices, if there's no pushback by the members of the community, if they're allowed to just continue to do what they do and people just throw up their arms and say, well, hey, it happens, maybe there's some education that needs to be done within the hobby to spot these things, to warn these people about, hey, this could be a potential scam, do your homework. I don't know. Again, I'm not proposing specific solutions here, but again, I want to see this hobby grow. And I think if this stuff goes unchecked, there's a pretty good likelihood that there are some people within the hobby, and maybe those that are in the younger generation, those that have just gotten back into the hobby or in for the first time, and maybe they're, a bit older, have some disposable money, hear good things about sports cards. It may discourage them from continuing to be involved in the hobby. If someone buys a high-end card and finds out that it's been faked or trimmed, if someone gets into a break and they think they hit a great card, or they keep putting money into breaks and for some reason they just don't seem to be getting any hits, if they watch some of these influencers and maybe not through intention of the influencer, go out and buy and invest in some of these cards and they crash in price. And now they're holding on to cards that may be 75, 50% less than what they paid for those cards. They may get discouraged. They may say, you know what, this isn't for me. I thought this was going to be fun. All this stuff's going on. I'm out. And that type of situation leads me to comment on a recent video that John Mangini did about whether vintage cards and the prices are peaking. Now, John made a good argument on what his thoughts are for that. I somewhat agree, but maybe differ a little slightly, and it's just based on my personal experience. So again, I've been collecting for over 40 years. When I first started collecting, I was collecting modern cards, or the cards that were just released at that time. And so technically, as a young collector, those were, to me, modern cards, and vintage was still the older cards. It's just a matter of perspective. And so I continued to collect, quote-unquote, modern cards, my Wade Boggs collection. As new cards would be released, I tried to get as many Boggs cards as I could, and I still, do that to some extent today. But I was one that, maybe occasionally here and there would buy a vintage card. But it wasn't until I was much older, and I would say maybe within the last 5 or 6 years, that I really started slowly moving, and now to a greater extent, my attention and hobby dollars toward vintage cards. So because I enjoyed the hobby so much, I just generally over time progressed more toward appreciating and had an interest in vintage cards. So getting back to my first reason is, if we have all these collectors, maybe not a majority, but even if it's a decent number, that because of what's going on, just decide to leave the hobby, get fed up with it, well, they're not going to be around for when they are older and potentially learn to appreciate and have interest in vintage cards. Now, I have to admit that reasoning or thought process, again, is maybe a little selfish on my part. Obviously, I'd like to see my vintage cards either, maintain their value or increase in value over time. That's not why I buy them. But, you'd like to know that the money you put into this hobby 20, 30 years down the road, whether I sell them, whether my son gets them after I pass away, that there's still some value in them. So, yeah, I mean, I want to see this hobby continue. I want to see those, maybe that younger generation remain in the hobby for 10, 20, 30 years. And again, as they get old, maybe they, again, slowly transition to even maybe a mixture of still modern cards and some vintage cards. And so, again, from a standpoint of, not affecting me, I think it's important for this hobby to be healthy, to continue, to have this card community grow. I think, I forget which video I was looking at, but I think Fanatics' plan on the future is to try to increase the hobby. I want to say did they say 25% a year, which I think seems to be pretty aggressive. But whatever the number is, Fanatics, with their huge investments that they've put in and buying out Topps and all the other things that they're doing, they're heavily invested into this hobby. And their future and success depends on not only people remaining in the hobby, but people coming into the hobby. And if these certain, I don't know if you want to say bad apples, or again, these issues that pop up, and again, it may not be the predominant thing going on, but when someone sees something, start seeing all these videos, everyone focuses on these things that are popping up. And maybe it's, the exception and not the norm, which I think it is. It still puts a dark cloud or negative light on the hobby. So again, from a non-selfish, maybe still selfish standpoint, I think these things do need to be addressed. How? I don't know. But I think it is important for the hobby, the community, to get together, maybe take a step back, and again, somehow try to hold card companies, sellers on eBay, breakers, influencers, to a higher standard, to have some negative consequences to what they do. Again, remember, us as collectors, investors, flippers, dealers, however you want to label yourself, we're the ones with the money. Okay, card companies can produce as many cards as they want. Breakers can buy as many product as they want and offer breaks. Influencers can put out as many videos as they want about different topics within the hobby. But if we don't participate with our dollars, they'll get the message. And so I think, again, it's important for us, no matter how you collect, no matter what you collect, to be aware of some of these things that are going on within the hobby. And don't just, as my thumbnail shows, don't just close your eyes, close your ears, close your mouth, and just say, hey, you know what? It doesn't impact me. I don't care. I'm just going to go about doing my thing, because again, if this stuff goes unchecked, it may have long-term consequences for the hobby and how we enjoy the hobby together. So would love to know your comments in this video. What do you think? What are your thoughts on all the stuff that's going on? And let me know, are you concerned for the future of the hobby, or don't you care? It could be anywhere in between, but again, would love to know your thoughts on what's going on. So that's all I have for you. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.